It's the worst kind of bad. He's quoting, falsely, Hitler as though he's wise and speaking the truth about Jews. Stephen A., it's as bad as it gets. And here's the problem. The white citizens of America, he quotes, will be terrified to know all this time they've been mistreating and discriminating and lynching the children of Israel. In other words, let me be very clear what this means. I'm from New York, as you are, Stephen A. I understand what he thinks he's saying. There is bad information out there, especially on the streets, by the way, that claims that one of the conspiracy theories goes that white Jews are only claiming to be the children of Israel and intentionally keeping African Americans, black people, in the dark that they're in fact the real children of Israel, and keeping the world in the dark about that, because that way they can somehow control the world, the white Jews. And that here's what's critical, because he thinks, remember, Deshaun's saying I was trying to educate my people, right? He's trying to miseducate them. The white citizens of America, meaning the non-Jews, would be terrified to know all this time that they've been mistreating and discriminating and lynching the real children of Israel, meaning black people. In other words, the white Jews, like in the South, for example, the white people in the South, for example, who also hate Jews. So I'm talking about the ones who were lynching black people. The crimes they committed, they wouldn't have done it had it not been for the machinations of the white Jews who's convinced them that, in fact, they're Jews and not the black people. Do you understand? It's lunatic conspiracy anti-Semitism. Like classic anti-Semitism. That's what he thought. That is the message. What I just said is the message he thought he was educating. So what I need to know from Deshaun Jackson before an apology is legitimate is, do you understand that's nonsense?
There are growing calls for the president of the Philadelphia chapter of the NAACP to resign after his recent anti-Semitic posts on social media. Minister Rodney Muhammad shared an image on Facebook last week before taking it down. It featured a misattributed quote that actually traces back to a neo-Nazi. More than a dozen local Jewish and black elected officials and community leaders came together to rebuke the post and call for an apology. And even some said that Muhammad should probably step down. In a statement, Muhammad said that he regrets, quote, the insult, pain, and offense it caused to all, particularly those in the Jewish community. And he went on to say that he is not anti-Semitic and hopes to have a productive dialogue moving forward. The three men seen at the top of the Facebook post that he posted were entertainers Ice Cube, Nick Cannon, and NFL player Deshaun Jackson. All three have faced recent scrutiny over anti-Semitic comments and posts that they made online. Cannon and Jackson, however, have both apologized. But these high-profile incidents highlight just some of the anti-Semitic attacks Jewish Americans are facing at an alarming rate every day in this country.
All right, family. Shalom, shalom, Shabbat shalom. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. As we just saw in the last few videos, our people are the center of attention when it comes to this anti-Semitic label. But why is that? What is anti-Semitism? And how did we become the face of it? Aren't we Semitic peoples? Let's dig into this. We're gonna bring out the truth today. We're not even gonna waste no time, family. So what is anti-Semitism? The definition is hostility towards or discrimination against Jews as a religious, ethnic, or racial group. So in other words, discrimination against Jews. Not discrimination against all Semitic speaking peoples. Not discrimination against Arabs, Bedouins, right? Babylonians, Syrians, Ishmaelites. Just this particular people who the world believes to be Jews. Now, from our research, we are the true Jews, right? So, hostility against Jews. Last time I checked, when our people were scattered to the four corners of the earth by way of slavery, everybody that oppressed us became anti-Semitic peoples because they was anti-us, the Semitic speaking Jews. But hey, we're going to dig into that. Notice first known use, 1880. These three brothers, as we've already saw, some of the main three people hit with this target. But why is that? The Los Angeles Times did an article on this subject, and it goes on to say, much like the anti-black sentiment isn't always manifested by slurs, and anti-Semitism doesn't always come with a lighted marquee. It's subtle, shrewd, and absent-minded stereotyping, unchallenged colloquialisms, tepid rebukes of inflammatory remarks like the ones recently made by Deshaun Jackson and Nick Cannon, or even worse, no rebukes at all. Jackson, a star wide receiver with the Philadelphia Eagles, has apologized for his Instagram post on anti-Semitic quote attributed to Adolf Hitler, and Cannon has issued two apologies for an anti-Semitic comment made on his podcast, Cannon's Class, during an interview with Richard Griffin. For Cannon, though Viacom cut ties with him, his contrition was enough for Fox, which is keeping him as a host on its hit competition series, The Masked Singer. Both Jackson and Cannon have pledged to educate themselves on the subject, and a move that would have served everyone better if they had done that before slandering an entire group of people within hurtful conspiracies and accusations. All right, so us being Israelites is conspiracies and accusations according to them. And of course, one can't help but wonder if the newfound desire to learn more is sincere or simply self-preservation. I genuinely hope it is the former. No group owns suffering, and no one is too old to grow. After reading this and after reviewing all these things that we've, saw regarding our people confessing that we are the true Jews, and what happens when they do that, it took me back to the Maccabean period. What does 2 Maccabees tell us? Chapter 6, verse 6, that it was unlawful for a man to profess himself to be a Jew during the time of the Hellenistic periods when the Gentile came and trotted down our land, right? So it just seems like the Maccabean period all over again. What happens when you call yourself a Jew? You got to apologize, or you're going to get fired, or you're going to get scrutinized, especially if you a so-called big act. So the question is, what is a Semite? What is a Semite? The biblical word is what we're going to go to find out that. I brought this out before, but it's very important that we read and digest what it's saying. The biblical word. Racial characteristics of the Semites. This race is characterized by a dark complexion. This race is characterized by a dark complexion, thick, black, curly hair, a hook nose, rather thickened at the base, and thick lips. So, a Semite is described as your everyday black person. That's very interesting. Anti-Semitic, Anti-Semitic, Okay. So according to the biblical world, the Semites were dark complexion, dark-skinned peoples. But can we see that itself throughout the history? Can we prove this? That Semites have been depicted as dark or described as dark throughout the years? And the answer is yes. We can take it over to your Hyksos, who are Amorites, right, that came out of Mesopotamia area in Egypt. And as we can see, they are melanated. Another picture, we definitely can see the color of his skin is a ruddy type of brown. And even here, we see the Shek right here, which is, I think this is a shepherd's crook. And that is important because when we go to the scripture, and this also means king or authority, if I'm not mistaken. But when we go to Genesis 46, verses 33 through 34, we learn something very important, because what a lot of people don't know is that these same melanated Hyksos shepherd kings, they were in the land of Egypt at the same time the Israelites was in the land of Egypt as slaves. But Joseph said to his brothers that It shall come to pass when Pharaoh shall call you and shall say, what is your occupation? That ye shall say, the servants' trade have been about cattle for our youth, even unto now, but we and also our fathers, that ye may dwell in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd, right? Every shepherd, every Hyksos is an abomination to the Egyptians. So Joseph's brothers told him to say, you are a Hyksos, right? You are a shepherd. So you can dwell in the land of Goshen, where the other Asiatics were. And of course, these Asiatics were black. Once again, the Hyksos. With cattle, like Joseph told him to say. So he can dwell amongst these people. So the Israelites can dwell amongst these peoples. We can take it to other Egyptian reliefs or depictions of Semitic peoples. And this is a so-called Babylonian. Shout out to your boy Shamar Yehuda for giving us this detailed image. You know what I'm saying? This little side by side, this comparison. All right. Make sure y'all go add him on the gram. Shamar Yehuda, for sure, for sure. Here's another Semitic speaking person depicted in Egypt, Assyrian or Syria. Shout out to Shamar Yehuda again, giving us those depictions, giving us that symbolism, right? We see what's going on here. All right, Shusha or Bedouin, and it's very interesting because these Bedouins are, well, you will see. Take a look here. The so-called Middle Easterner, Bedouin, Arab, or Jordan, so-called Edomite, because remember, the Edomites lived in Jordan. The Edomites lived in Petra, Mount Seir, right? That was their land. But I want you to take note of something here. The Bedouin is the same color as the Libyan, right? The Bedouin is the same color as the Libyan. Let's continue to dig, though. We got a so-called African American, right? A descendant of Israelite slaves all the way in America, looking like ancient Assyrians. That was depicted thousands of years ago. Excuse me, resembling ancient Assyrians. Is it because he's Semitic as well? And look at AD. He lighter than this person. He's lighter than this person. Negroes come in all shades. Right? Negroes come in all shades. Israelite slave in ancient Egypt. Yes, Israelite slave in ancient Egypt. Right? These are all Semitic speaking peoples I'm showing you. Right? And remember what the definition told us. Characterized as black complexion. And this is in the Asaf Museum within Egypt. Israelite slave with his hands bound behind his back. This right here is Asiatic Negroes, alright? This right here is a depiction of Asiatic Negroes. Depiction of your Bakarish tribes of the Red Sea. These people are Semitic as well. Your Bakarish tribes of the Red Sea, these people are Semitic as well. So with that being said, I just showed you a couple pictures so you can just see what's going on and how it's well known and it's well documented what Semitic peoples looked like throughout the years, right? Even the Egyptians depicted these Semitic speaking peoples as melanated peoples. So what we're going to do is jump to the book, The Arabs, the life story of a people who have left their deep impress on the world, all right? The Arabs. Because, right, the Arabs are Semitic speaking people too, right? The Arabs descend from Ishmael and Edom. Let's read this. The original inhabitants of Arabia, then, according to Sir Arthur Keith, one of the world's greatest living anthropologists, who has made a study of Arab skeletal remains, ancient and modern, were not the familiar Arabs of our own time, but a very much darker people. All right, so this anthropologist did skeletal remains on Arabs, and when he analyzed it and studied it, he said the Arabs are not familiar with the Arabs of the ancient, because what? The Arabs of the ancient, or the Arabs of old, were a very darker people. It goes on to say a proto-negroid belt of mankind stretched across the ancient world from Africa to Malaya, from Africa to India, right? So that means between Africa and Malaya, India, it was black people. It was black people in Arabia, Iraq, right? All these places that they like to tell us, or that we see, is whited out because of the European invasions. That all used to be black, and that's facts. Or like he said, a proto-negroid belt. But let's continue. But like it said, the Arabs were a very much darker people, right? Black sons of Shem. We're going to go to the Middle East Today, 6th edition, all right? The Middle East Today, the 6th edition. And we're going to start at the top, and it's dealing with the term Arabs, all right? Neither does the term indicate race in the modern anthropological sense. Along the eastern coast of the Mediterranean, there are whole towns full of blonde, blue-eyed, light-skinned Arabs, all right? How they come to be? Use your brains, people. Many of the leaders of the Arabs world in a mixed gathering of diplomats would be indistinguishable from Germans or Swedes. So, let me read that again, because that's very important. Many of the leaders of the Arab world, all right? Many of the leaders of the Arab world in a mixed gathering of diplomats would be indistinguishable from Germans and Swedes. So basically he's saying these people look white. These people are like Germans. These people are like Swedes. The people that invaded the land in the first place. But in the streets of almost any metropolis in the Arab world, a traveler will pass some Arabs whose black skin, kinky hair, and negroid facial features would not seem out of place in Ghana of Nigeria. Golly. They say these Arabs were negroid in facial feature and would not seem placed out of Ghana or Nigeria. So these people are, you feel me? These people are definitely negroid looking. It goes on to say they had kinky hair as well. So my question is, which Arab was first? Which Arab was first? The black one or the white one? Once again, we just proven that Shem's sons were definitely black and still are today. All right, let's continue on. The Negro in the New World by Sir Harry Johnston. All right, because before we even get to what we're trying to get to today, we have to understand what a Semite is. But let's continue. It says the Elamites, right? The Elamites of Mesopotamia, remember the Elamites are Semitic people as well, appear to have been a negroid people with kinky hair and to have transmitted this racial type to the Jews and Syrians. What? So the Elamites, a Semitic people, were negroid who passed the racial type, the negroid racial type, over to the Jews and the Syrians. That's very interesting. Because we know our ancestors came out of that Mesopotamian area where it's said to be Negroes, right? They came out of that area. Abraham, Terah, Eber. There's a curliness of the hair together with a Negro eye and full lips in the portrait of a Syrian, which conveys the idea of an ancient Negro element in Babylon. And that's facts. There was an ancient Negro element in Babylon. Right? Because what? These ancient Semitic peoples were Negroids, man. Going down here to the footnotes, it says something very important. On the first one, it says the Jews are composed into 4 separate racial elements, the Asiatic Negroid strain. So wait. Alright, Semites, Asiatics, Afro-Asiatics. So who they really talking about here? The Asiatic Negro strain shows itself occasionally in the curly hair, long eye, and proportions of the skull. The Jewish hybrids with the Negro in Jamaica and Guinea reproduce most strikingly the Assyrian type. Right, the Assyrian Negroid type. It is quite conceivable that the great peninsula of Arabia was once populated, as far as its natural conditions allowed, by a primitive Negroid stock. Wait. Who were the people of Arabia? Semitic speaking peoples. So everywhere we looking this far, Semitic peoples are being linked up with people that's black. I thought Ham was the father of the black races. Right? They expected us to believe that everybody came from Ham that's dark skinned. But that's false, family. History and Black African Americans in the search of an ancient past is what we're going to be reading from next. And of course, you all will have all these links. Of course. Very top is where we're going to be starting, because it's about to get deep. In medieval literature, a theory prevailed in which the Jews were part of the black race, or at least swarthy. A number of bizarre examples were brought forth as proof. One was that because Jewish religious law commands the coyotes to take place in the dark, Jewish children are born with dark skin. The image of the Jew as dark skin fits in with the image of the southern Mediterranean type. Indeed, the Jew practically became the prototypical Mediterranean, small, black, and hairy all over. The image of the Semitic Mediterranean Jew as black occupied a significant place in both popular and learned anti-Semitic literature of the 19th century. Once again, the image of the Semitic Mediterranean Jew as black occupied a significant place in both popular and learned anti-Semitic literature of the 19th century. Some, like Houston Stewart Chamberlain, in Foundations of the 19th Century, describe the Jews as an admixture of Negro blood with Jewish in the diaspora of Alexandria. In early 20th century anti-Semitic and racial literature, Oriental-Semitic Hamitic race was depicted as the complete opposite of the white race, right? Because what? Israel, the Israelites, the 12 tribes of Israel, was a race of Semitic Hamitic peoples. The fathers of Israel were Semites, and a lot of the mothers were Hamites. The Israelites themselves would marry predominantly Hamites. Therefore, they were a Semito-Hamitic race, or Semitic Hamitic race, as they outlined here. Continuing on, let me read that again. The Orient-Semitic Hamitic race was depicted as the opposite, as complete opposite of the white race. Jewish blood is dark black, all right? Jewish blood is dark black, right? The Jews are Semitic. Keep this in mind. We dealing with Semitic peoples because we finna deal with this word anti-Semitic at the very end. Wrote Max Brewer, a racist, anti-intellectual, and anti-Semitic author who produces a series of articles in which Jews are exemplified as utterly negative, dark of character, and Judaism as a black essence. Wait. This author was writing that what? The Jews exemplified as utterly negative, dark of character, and Judaism as a black essence. Hey, that's true. But let's continue. The fear of black intensified in post-World War I Germany because of the presence of black-skinned soldiers in the French occupation army stationed in Rhineland. So let me read that again because that's interesting. The fear of black intensified in post-World War I Germany because of the presence of black-skinned soldiers in the French occupation army stationed in the Rhineland, combined with confused and insane racist anti-Semitic imaginations and the highly charged, monstrous image of the black in the European literature. This fear became a patent brew which enforced the old image, right? The old image of the Jews as black. Let's continue on. The Jew, a Negro. The Jew, a Negro. It would be better to say that the Negro descended from the ancient Jews. It would be better to say that the Negro descended from the ancient Jewish type or Mediterranean race. It is hardly correctly ethnical to reverse the sentence. So it is rather better to say that the Negro descended from the ancient Jewish type. What did the Zondervan Dictionary tell us? That what Ham, the progenitor of the dark races, but not the Negro. This is why. This is why. The original Jew or Negro were then descended from the same father. The evidence of intermarriage you mentioned is a universal phenomenon, and the close affinity between Hamitic and Semitic speech and between Northern Semitic people and the Semites shows close relationship as you surmise. So the original Jew and the Negro were then descended from the same father. So that would make the Negro sons of Shem, right? Since the Jews are sons of Shem. Y'all peep what I'm putting out? Alright. Let's continue. Jewish self-hatred is where we're going to now. Jewish self-hatred, anti-Semitism, and the hidden language of the Jews. Alright, so it says, the Jew is described as small, black, and hairy all over. His back is bent. His feet are flat. His eyes squint. His lips smack. He has an evil smell, is prominent, and loves to deflower and impregnate and infect blonde girls. Alright, so that's facts too, but what we're really looking for is where it says the Jew is described as small, black, and hairy all over, back is bent, his feet are flat. Right, we know who he's describing here. Now my question is, from all these Semitic peoples we saw this learned about this far, right? We saw that the Arabs were black, right? We're starting to see that the Jews were so-called Negroes, described as black. So where in the world does this connect with the modern day Jewry? Right? How does this connect to the modern day Jewry? Black people not just moving places and turning white, just like white people not moving places and turning black. Them people down in South Africa been there for what, 600, 500, 700 years, and they still white. You get what I'm saying? It's things that just don't work like that. But we're going to go down here where it says Erickson, who fled Austria to escape the Nazis, and who earlier had fled his own identity as a Hamburg to become an Erickson, presents very much his own reading on Hitler's racial theory. For what strikes a reader of Mein Kampf is that Hitler did not accept Chamberlain's hybrid theory of Jewish racial identity. Rather, he relied on a much more primitive conspiracy theory. For Hitler, the linkage between the Jews and the blacks was a political one. It was the Jews who inspired the French to station black troops along the Rhine following the 1919 armistice, and it was therefore the intent of the Jews to lose these barbarians belonging to a race inspired by nature with a tremendous sexual instinct into the heart of Europe. Alright, so we see something very interesting right here where it mentions that the Jews inspired the French to put black troops along the Rhine. Right, that's something interesting, and we're gonna dig into it on another video. But it says Erickson simply recreates the image of the Jews as blacks with which he himself grew up. So when he was growing up, when Erickson was growing up, he knew that the Jews were black. Erickson simply recreates the image of the Jews as black with which he himself grew up. Erickson's image of the black Jew is a hyperbolic summary of the Nazis' image of the Jew. That's very interesting because we have information on the Jew within Nazi Germany who was black. I'm gonna put this link in the bio for everybody. but you will indeed have to go translate this from Spanish to English. So go on, have your Google Translate up when you go into this site, because everything is written in Spanish. But I brought out the main points in this article for you all, and it says El raro caso de Joseph Nasi. All right, de Joseph Nasi. Joseph Nasi, his father was a Sephardic Jew, right? A black Sephardic Jew. He was a native of Suriname, right, in Jamaica. We told you about the Jews relocating to Jamaica, right? Specifically the Sephardic Jews. And also John Bigelow, who visited Jamaica in the 1850s, visited the Jews that was expelled by King John, and he said that they were Negroid, right? Later on, he moved and lived in San Francisco for a time in the United States. He later moved to Belgium, Germany in the 1930s. And it also made reference to him possibly being the only black Jew to survive Hitler alone. Like I said, I'm going to leave this link in the bio to you all so you can translate it and read the whole article. But this is what a Semitic speaking Sephardic Jew looked like in Nazi Germany at the time. Right? Remember, the Jews are Semitic. I'm going to keep saying that. The Jews are Semitic. But are the Jews that we see today Semitic? Genetics, mass media, and identity. A case of genetic research on dilemma and B'nai Israel to the Parfit. It says, if other people's color was of significance to Jews, so was Jews' color significant to Gentiles. A long European and North American tradition maintains that the Jews in general are black, metaphorically as well as literally. All right, so metaphorically and literally, these people knew that the Jews were black. There are certain comparisons between the Jews and the devil traditionally represents as black. Medieval anti-Jewish polemic maintained that the Jews were at least very swarthy, and often Jews accepted this as being the case. Some accepted the position of Barbanel that once long ago the Jews had indeed been light-skinned, as Mishnah maintained, but they had grown dark as punishment of exile, right? And we know that's not true. But Robert Knox, the first conservator of the College Museum, Edinburgh, in the mid-19th century, commented on the African character of the Jews, all right? The African character of the Jews, right? Because even when you're dealing with Joseph's story, his brothers couldn't even tell the difference between him and the other Africans, right? But it says, commented on the African character of the Jew, his muzzle-shaped mouth, a face removing him from other races. All right, 19th century anthropologists assumed that the Jews had close relational connections with the blacks. All right, according to Gilman, the general consensus of the ethnological literature of the late 19th century was that the Jews were black, or at least swarthy. That's very interesting. And remember, the 19th century is the 1800s, people. The 19th century is the 1800s. So at least up to the 1800s, what? The general consensus was that the Jews were black, or at least swarthy. And swarthy means black as well. So it's like you saying they were at least black or black. One of the late 19th century anthropologists explained the predominant mouth of some Jews being the result of the presence of black blood, and that brown skin, thick lips, and prognatism were typical of the Jews. All right, brown skin, thick lips, and prognatism were typical of the Jews. One of the key physical indicators of race was the nose. For the encyclopedists, all deviant noses were put together: the blacks, the Hottentots, and various peoples of Asia, such as the Jews. Alright, so this book right here dropped a lot of bombs. It dropped a lot of bombs, letting us know that, for a while, these Europeans have known that the Jews were black. They described them as black, right? Having certain type of characteristics, right? Muzzle-shaped mouths, hooked noses, African look, black or swarthy. So again, where is this modern day Jewry coming from? Where is these modern day Jews coming from? They not black. They don't have the African look. Let's continue. Next, we shall be going to Light and Truth collected from the Bible and Ancient and Modern History. Ancient and Modern History. I'm going to start where it says Isaiah. Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, was a Ethiopian who prophesied unto Egypt and Ethiopia. Now, last time I checked, Isaiah was an Israelite. Now, am I mistaken, family? Isaiah the prophet, who prophesied the regathering of the Israelites from Assyria and Elam and Ethiopia and Ashur in the four corners of the earth and the islands of the sea. All right, he was an Ethiopian or an Israelite. Understanding that the word Ethiopia also means black face or burnt face is very important. So this is saying Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos, was a black man who prophesied unto Egypt and Ethiopia as God commanded him, saying, Go and loose the sackcloth from off thy loins, and put off thy shoes from thy feet, and walk naked and barefoot. He did so 3 years for a sign and a wonder unto Egypt and Ethiopia, preaching unto his brethren the word of God. But they obeyed not the word of the Lord by the mouth of the prophet, and were led away, young and old, naked and barefoot, into captivity. As they were black, so was he. As he walked naked, so were they, led naked and barefoot, young and old, into captivity. Even to this day, from Africa, their descendants are led away by a wicked people into slavery. And this was written in 1844. Remember, this was written in 1844. So during his time, who is he talking about in Africa that are being led away captive by wicked people? He said, even to this day, from Africa, their descendants are led away by wicked people into slavery. But notice, it says, as they were black, so was he. So as the Israelites were black, so was Isaiah. So throughout this text, we have what? Isaiah being labeled as Ethiopian, right? And the Israelites being labeled as black. So we keep seeing black being labeled with these sons of Shem. Black, 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 black. Let's go to Russia and the Negro. Blacks in Russian history and thought. Blacks in Russian history and thought. And we shall start. Let's see. We're going to start at the very top. An occurrence in the United States during this same period may further explain how word spread of the Tsar's black servant corpse. In Boston, 1808, Negro Prince was elected as the second Grand Master of the African Grand Lodge of the Masons, all right? Thereafter called the Prince Hall Grand Lodge in honor of the first Grand Master, who died in December 1807, all right? 1807. Prince had been one of the organizers of the first officers of the African American Lodge when it was founded in 1791. By one account, Negro Prince was said to be a native of Russia, a Jew who identified as color people. So we got a lot going on right here. We dealing with Freemasonry, right? And it's like a lot of history that we can bring out concerning our people, you know, knowing they Israelites, even within this Freemasonry foolishness, right? Those people knew they was Israelites and they said it. It's history on it, but it's not being brought out in this video. But just know, it's deep. But what's interesting to take here from is Prince Nero was the Grand Master at an African lodge, right? He was so-called from Russia, and he was a Jew who identified with color people. Why is the Semite identifying with color people in America? I'll tell you why. Going to a black woman's odyssey, right, through Russia and Jamaica, the narrative of Nancy Prince. All right, and remember, Prince is a Russian Jew who identified with colored people. It says in Boston by Reverend Thomas Paul, at the African church, Mr. Nero Prince, chief butler, the emperor of all the Russians, to his Nancy Gardner of Salem, both persons of color, right? Both persons of color and dressed in the Russian costume. So these were people of color. And we know after the Inquisition, a lot of our people went into those other European countries like Britain, Russia, Holland. So we shouldn't be surprised when we see these black so-called Jews coming from these European countries and being affiliated with the Negroes in America, being affiliated with the Semitic Jews, right? The Semitic black Jews in America. Once again, Prince had been one of the organizers at the first officers of the African Lounge when it was founded in 1971. By one's account, Nero was said to have been a native of Russia, a Jew who identified with color people, all right? He was an Israelite from Russia, migrated to America, and identified with his people in America. Going on, it says something very interesting on another page. This is coming from page 11. This is coming from page 11. It says, where should we start? Based on the author's personal research in Abkhazia, the book's main purpose is to illustrate the Russians had in contact with African peoples, all right? In relating the story of the Abkhazian Negroes, she accepted the interpretation of Vardy and the other Russian scholars and asked that the presence of Africans there should not be surprised, since starting from ancient times, slave trading colonies had been established on the Black Sea, alternatively by the Greeks, Romans, Arabs, Genoes, and Turks, all right? And we know all these people were coming into Israel and enslaving us at different points of time as well. But what's very important is that she notes that the Tatarist officials frequently listed Negroes as Arabs and Jews. Why were Negroes likened or listed as Semitic speaking peoples, right? And this is in a whole European country. Why were Negroes listed as Arabs and Jews, Semitic speaking peoples? Because the Negro is a Semite, right? Because the Arabs are Negroid. Because the Jews are Negroid. That's why. Officials frequently listed Negroes as Arabs and Jews. That is very interesting. Black Jews in Africa and the Americas, Tudor Parfit. This is important because this is coming from a first-hand Sephardic Jew himself, letting you know. Let's just read it. We're going to start right here where it says, the same thought is expressed in the contemporary Sefer Yosef HaMakani, which boasts that we Jews are from a clean and white seed, all right? We are from a clean and pure seed. Therefore, our faces are black. This is coming from a Jew himself. He says, therefore, our faces are black because we come from a clean and white seed. But he says, but you from the red seed of menstruation, therefore your visages are pale and reddened. Dang. It's like that, brother. So even black Jews, even Jews themselves telling you that what? We are from a clean and white seed, right? We are from a clean and pure seed. So our faces are black. But you from the red seed of menstruation, therefore your visages are pale and red. And what does the scripture say? Lamentations 4:8. Their visage is blacker than coal, all right? Their faces are blacker than coal. Let's go to this book right here. When Scotland was Jewish, all right? When Scotland was Jewish. As curiosity inspection will affirm, none of these prominent Scotchmen look typically Scottish. In fact, they appear rather dark and Semitic. Yet here They are Scottish aristocrats. The Scottish royals, stewards were equally dark and Semitic in appearance. Hold on, man. The Scottish royal stewards were equally dark and Semitic in appearance. So once again, we have these Semitic peoples being listed or called dark-skinned. Of Charles II's dusky appearance, his mother, Queen Henrietta Maria, had been half mortified, writing after her confinement, that the child was so dark she was ashamed of him. All right, and you can and in the meantime, you can look up and see that word dusky means black as well. But going on, it says he was quickly dubbed the Black Boy. Enemies made out that he was a black bastard begotten by a black Scotsman, right? Begotten by a black Israelite in Scotland. We propose that many, perhaps most, present-day Scots are descended from the same types of ancestors who produced these personics. Further, we suggest that these forebears were Mediterranean Jews from France, Spain, and Portugal, all right? From France, Spain, and Portugal. We know that these people were Sephardics and they were black. The wood carving of Presbyterian reformer John Knox depicts him as having a full beard covered him and Semitic facial features. We will propose that Knox was the son or grandson of Sephardic Jewish immigrants to Scotland. The Sephardic Jew is always dark complexion. Ain't that what the history books tell us? And look at him, bro. Doesn't look like the average grandpa. But yet, he's described as dark and Semitic. According to modern news, the Semites are white. But we keep seeing the Semites being likened as to black people. Interesting. So let's move on. And we see that it says what? Biblically and historically, the Semitic Israelites were Negroes from the Levant who migrated and settled in Africa. We see various scriptures, such as Genesis 47:7, letting us know that what? Joseph's brothers could not even distinguish him from the other Egyptians. Genesis 50, verses 1 through 13, it tells us of what? The Israelites being mistaken for Egyptians during Jacob's burial in a tide. Because remember what? Egyptians and Israelites went with Joseph to bury Jacob in the tide, and the Canaanites said, "For it is a great mourning for the Egyptians." Why not say that it is a great day of mourning for the Egyptians and Israelites if they looked any different? But they bunched everybody into that Egyptian category because they all were Negroid in appearance. Exodus 2 and 15 through 9 tells us that what? Moses is called an Egyptian. You remember the four girls' father asked how did they get home so soon, and they said the Egyptian has delivered us from the shepherds, all right? And we know good and well Moses is not an Egyptian, right? He is a Israelite of the tribe of Levi. Even we take it to Ezekiel, right? 16:3. And these are all verses for you all to write down and, you know what I'm saying, to put in your notes and to study and to keep, because they outline important things. Ezekiel 16:3 tells us that what? That thy father was an Amorite and thy mother was a Hittite. Thy father was a Shemite and thy mother was a Hamite. This is the history of Israel, right? Like it's outlined in Ezekiel 16:3. Thy father was an Amorite and thy mother was a Hittite, right? Why is this being said unto the children of Israel? Judges chapter 3 verse 5 through 6 tells us that the Israelites mixed with Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, Hivites, and Jebusites, right? These are all black races. Acts chapters 21 verses 37 through 38. Paul is literally called an Egyptian, right? This verse points out like basic stereotyping even of today. Say we go out of town to another country and we speak that native tongue. Those Europeans gonna turn around and look at us and say, "Aren't you a Negro and you can speak French? Right? Aren't you a Negro and you can speak German? Aren't you a Negro and you can speak my language? I'm amazed. That's exactly what happened to Paul in Acts chapter 21. Songs of Solomon 1 through 5. We are black but comely as the tense of Kadar, right? The Israelites are described as black as comely as the tense of Kadar. Even if we take it to Jeremiah 14 and verses 2, it tells us that Judah was black unto the ground, all right? Judah was black unto the ground. All right, so those are just some of the verses that just outlines the color and, the heritage of the Israelites. And with Jeremiah 44 and verse 1, it gets very interesting. Well, throughout this whole chapter, it gets interesting because we see that Judah ended up migrating into Upper and Lower Egypt and Nubia. Did not Jeremiah say, woe unto them that go to dwell in Egypt? They went to Noph and Taphanes and Pathros. Right? And the Most High said that he would send a sword after them, and they shall return to Judah no more. They will see their land no more. That's very interesting. Because we can even see in Acts chapter 8, verses 26 through 28, that there was an Israelite returning to Jerusalem from Ethiopia to engage in worship. He was later baptized as well. So even in Acts, right, 8 and 26, we see Israelites coming back from Africa to engage in worship. Acts 13, chapter 1, we see 2 Israelites, right, in Africa. We got Lucius of Cyrene, or Lucius of Libya, and we got Simeon of Niger, right? Simeon of West Africa. This is facts. This is facts. Right? Simeon was not called Niger, right? Simeon was not called black. Nobody else within this Semitic structure was called anything racially, right? They were told where they were from. They were speaking on the regions these people was from. Simeon was from Niger. Simeon was not called Niger. Yes, Simeon was Niger. Simeon was black, but he was from Niger. Just like Eldad the Danite was from the Niger too. We're from the Niger River region because he came out of Timbuktu, which sits on the Niger. So Israelites being in Niger, being in sub-Saharan Africa has been long established. Even in Zephaniah 3 and 10, we see that the Israelites would be in sub-Saharan Africa. Does not it say that they shall be scattered beyond the rivers of Ethiopia? Isaiah 18 verses 1 through 2. That tells us that ambassadors shall be sent by sea, even in vessels, to a scattered nation beyond the rivers of Ethiopia. So ambassadors would end up coming to these people, to this scattered nation beyond the rivers of Ethiopia in vessels. Right? And from here we were scattered beyond the oceans of Ethiopia. And when we got scattered, we did like our ancestors in Exodus 1 and 11. And we rebuilt treasure cities, all right? We built treasure cities in the diaspora. We built, Charleston, South Carolina. We built Louisiana. We built Tennessee, Georgia. You know what I'm saying? What you think America looked like before our people stepped on it? What do you think these places look like before our people stepped on it? Our people got here, we cleared out the fence. Our people got here, we cleared out the woods. We cleared out the forest. We cleared out the trees. Right? We planted the foods. We planted the vegetables. We built the living quarters. We made this place what it is today. So historically and biblically, we can prove that these people were dark-skinned. Not just the Israelites, but other sons of Shem. As I said before, Israel built treasure cities in the diaspora just like their ancestors did in Egypt. If the Most High told us He's going to send us into Egypt again, that's going to mean we're going to build treasure cities again, all right? While all that happened, the Revelation 2:9 people and the rest of the Gentiles became the true anti-Semites. For Ezekiel 39:23 tells us that the heathen shall know that the house of Israel went into captivity for their iniquities. What? Because of their trespass against me. Because we trespassed against our Father. So He hid His face from us. He gave us to the hand of our enemies, and we fell by the sword and was carried away captive. Now I say that the Revelation 2:9 people and the rest of the Gentiles became the true anti-Semites because they benefited off the enslavement of our people. And yet, these people are being protected by this anti-Semitic term, but we aren't. When we are the true Semites, right? When these people benefited off the work and backs of our ancestors. Specifically these Revelation 2:9 people who call us anti-Semitic to this day. But what we're going to prove is they are the true anti-Semitics towards us. What is anti-Semitic? Let's get to the root of it. Anti, opposed to, against. Semitic, according to the research we just did, according to knowing that all the sons of Shem was black, right? We can make a definitive definition for this, right? And this is even this definition is right from the first source I showed you in the first place. But it says black complexion, thick, black, curly hair, hooked nose, thick lips. So the true definition of anti-Semitism is what? Against black people. You see how these so-called Revelation 2:9 people use wordplay with us? Oh, you're anti-Semitic. You're anti-Semitic. No, you are anti-Semitic. First of all, you're not even Semitic. This is the true meaning of anti-Semitic. Against black people. Against the black sons of Shem, right? Against all sons of Shem. I say these people are anti-Semitic for one because they benefited off our enslavement majorly. And they had a major role in the involvement. Banking on slavery, the Jewish banking network in slavery and Jim Crow. Banking historian Larry wrote that a substantial number of Southern Jews engaged in banking and their records show strong kinship bonds of interracial ties of ethnicity that add still other divisions to the banking class. According to several Jewish sources, the following is an abbreviated list of Jewish bankers in the American South, right, during the time of slavery. Many more Jewish merchants, right, acted as informal banks through the southern countryside. So what we have to understand is these people owned plantations, these people owned slaves, these people owned towns, these people owned banks that benefited from slavery. These people were slave merchants. These people were slave planters. And here's a list of some right here. Again, this is a list of some all right here. And the dates and the time frame and their description. And the banks they open, position, place, all that. Come on now. The Lehman Brothers, right? These are one of the many people that engaged in the slave trade. They were slave owners, right? Cotton traders. All these names of so-called Jews that benefit off of slavery. So-called Jews being anti-Semitic. A list of Jews being anti-Semitic towards the real Semites. Getting money off our enslavement. All these banks, right, were affiliated with the slave trade. All of these banks. All of these Ashkenazim banks. All of these Jewish banks, merchants, planters, shareholders, right? Look at all this. Investors in slavery, slave owner, right? And his last name was Levi, like you from the tribe of Levi. You know what I mean? But you a slave owner. We can keep doing this all day, y'all. It's numbers. It's numerous of Ashkenazim, European, German Jews who benefited off the backs of the Negro Semitic Israelites in America, and even down in Barbados and Jamaica. They was heavy slave traders down there. They was heavy merchants in the West Indies. I mean, the Jews were heavy merchants in the West Indies, to the point where they were trying to say that the Negroes was picking up Judaism from the Jewish slave merchants and from the Jewish slave owners, but we know that's false. So, with that understanding that these people are the true anti-Semites and they benefited off our enslavement, we're going to go back to the Jewish self-hatred, all right? Anti-Semitism and the hidden language of the Jews, and we're going to find out something. We're going to find out something. Because it tells us something very important. It says, in the German-speaking countries of Central Europe, the blacks was powerless. The myth of blackness was then applied to the political reality of the Jews who were assuming a promised status in Europe. The Jews became the white Negroes, as Otto von Bismarck's friend Hermann observed in 1892, because of the demands of the Jews in political and social equality created in the privileged groups. The Germans the need to see the Jews as political, observant, and immutably different. The image of the Jew as black is, however, not merely the product of races. The image of the Jews as black is not merely the product of the racist biology of the late 19th century, even though the examples that have been cited to this point reflects the rhetoric of this pseudoscience. For the association of the Jews with blackness is as old as the Christian tradition. Let me read that again. For the association of the Jews with the blackness is as old as Christian tradition. And we know the first Christians came out of Egypt, Nubia, and Ethiopia. So what more else do you need? I brought this out because it tells us something. It tells us that, over the years, the Israelites have always been known as black, right? But we see a change in the 18th centuries. Out of the left field is what we're going to read now. Jews and Black Baseball. I recommend everybody to go read this book. Read this full book. Out of the left field, Jews and Black Baseball. We're going to start right here, where it says, actually, let's start at the top. Bellevue Grays were a independent black Jewish baseball team, right? The Bellevue Grays were a independent black Jewish baseball team that was part of his community in the 1920s and 1930s, all right? So we in the 1920s, 1930s. Like the Eastern European immigrant Jews who learned about baseball in order to become American, black Jews also saw baseball as a way of belonging to America. But for them, belonging meant being welcome only in the segregated world that black baseball embodied. The Grays achieved short success, but the team was unsustainable in an industry built on cutthroat business dealings that were anathema to their religious values. As Jews were in the process of becoming white during this era. That's very interesting. So in the 1920s, 1930s, the Jews were in the process of becoming white. Let me read that again. As Jews were in the process of becoming white during this era, a black Jewish baseball team posed a great threat to Jews who sought assimilation through whiteness. So they was coming over here in America, right? And when they was coming over here in America, we saw a shift from Jews being black to Jews being white. They sought to assimilate. They sought to take over the black Jewish identity, which they were able to do for a short period of time. Y'all had y'all time, all right? We had the Inquisition. Y'all started claiming yourselves to be Sephardic Jews. Y'all came and picked us up on slave ships, brought us to America. Y'all started coming over here. Y'all settled in Angola. Y'all settled in South Africa. Like, why are y'all settling in all the places the Israelites are? To do this, to assimilate us, to oppress us, to keep us down, to be anti-Semitic, right? To benefit off us, while they assimilated our identity. As the Jews were in the process of becoming white during this era, a black Jewish baseball team posed a great threat to Jews who sought assimilation through whiteness. Let's continue on. The black Jews of Africa. The black Jews of Africa. We're going to start, let's see, right here. In the United States and South America, in the first decades of the 20th century, immigrant Jews were confronted with the question, all right? And remember, 20th century, the beginning of the 20th century would be like 1910, 1920, 1930, all right? So the Jews were confronted with the question whether the Jews were long depicted as dark or black. So we dealing with this color of the Jews in the early 1900s again. It says these European Jews had to be confronted with the question whether the Jews were long depicted as dark or black, were racially to do with Africa or Europe, and this inevitably caused consternation, both in the United States and South Africa. All right, both in the United States and South Africa, Jews were certainly not perceived as white until around the time of the Second World War. Get out of here. Get out of here. But we being called anti-Semitic when the idea that you all are Semitic didn't come around until the 20th century, early 1900s. Yet we are the anti-Semites. When we have been labeled with the Semites, when we have been identified with the Semitic people way longer than you all. We just read on the previous page in the 1920s that they were in the process of whitening the Jews. The Jews were in the process of becoming white. Now we see that both in the United States and in South America, Jews were not certainly perceived as white until around the time of the Second Civil War. That is big, people. Because that tells us there's a conspiracy going on. That tells us they know the Jews are black. So if they know the Jews are black, they would know exactly where the Jews are. It's very interesting, family. That's very interesting. In conclusion, the ancient Israelites were black Semites, also known as Afro-Asiatic / African Asiatic, and even Afro or Afri in itself is of Hebrew extract. All right, even Afro, Afir, Africa is of Hebrew, right? Is of Hebrew abstract. Let me read this again. The ancient Israelites were black Semites, also known as Afro-Asiatic / African Asiatics, who were dispersed from Europe and Africa and took on the byword African American, Afro-Brazilian, etc. Family, we are Semites. We cannot be Semitic towards any other European group. We can be anti-Semitic towards our own, right? The Most High told us that what in the curses of Deuteronomy, you shall have an evil eye towards your brother, right? That's anti-Semitic. Israelite on Israelite crime, that's anti-Semitic. Enslaving the people, scattering them to the four corners of the earth, that's anti-Semitic. And that's what the heathen did. That's what the so-called Jews did. So again, family, anti-Semitic means to be anti-black. Anti-black. And again, I say shalom. Toda for watching. Shabbat shalom. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay prayed up and continue in this faith and knowledge. And remember, family, this is not any hate speech to any European Jew. This is not any anti-Semitic speech towards any European Jew. Because me, myself, I am indeed a Semite. Shalom.
But who else are the real Shemites? There are other anti-Zionist, non-Ashkenazi, Torah-keeping Jews worldwide that are the true Shemites. Just like the Yemenite Jews and the black African Shemites. And I most probably shouldn't go here, but I will anyway. You see, after the destruction of the temple, yes, many of the Jews, the poor Jews, remained in the land. But there was a migration as well of the more affluent Jews to Yemen and to other parts of Africa. Other parts of Africa. You see, the black African Shemites were actually then taken away in slave ships. Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. And who were the owners of these slave ships? Who were the biggest slavers in the 16th century? The Ashkenazi were the biggest slavers in the 16th and 17th century, going into the 18th century. You see, Ashkenazi slaving was huge. This is from, I have to be careful when I say this, so my sources, it's always best to go with Jewish sources, right? Because you just trod on a bunch of toes. So we'll go with the Jewish sources. There's a ton of sources out there, but I'll stick with the Jewish ones because that's just safer. The Jewish scholar Jonathan Shorshak says this: Jewish merchants routinely possessed enormous numbers of slaves temporarily before selling them off. If a slave auction fell on a Jewish festival, it was postponed due to lack of buyers and sellers. The Jews of Suriname gave their slave plantations Hebrew names such as Machanaim, Nachamu, and Goshen. Rabbi Herbert Bloom adds that the slave trade was one of the most important Jewish activities. In 1694, Jews owned 9,000 African Shemites. Jewish slaving is in fact confirmed by the Jewish Encyclopedia. So in the days that we live, there's nothing more important than this Melchizedek message to the true Shemites. Because this Melchizedek message of the true Shemites is the solution. It is the solution to the Palestinian problem. It is the solution to the Black Lives Matter that is being fomented by the synagogue of Satan. It is the solution to racial tensions, segregation that is all part of the synagogue of Satan's plot for Yahweh's people to fight amongst themselves based upon the color of our skin. That is ridiculous. But that is what they want so that we keep our minds off of them as the true slavers of Yahweh's people. When we all realize who's behind this racial and political fermentation, the synagogue of Satan, and when we join the priesthood together as Joseph's coat, we're victorious. Then we're victorious over the New World Order slavers, their Luciferic, Levitical perversion. You see, they're obsessed with blood. They're obsessed with their own blood, and they're obsessed with your blood. But they're not obsessed with Yahusha's blood.